It's the Final Word Daily, coming to you live from Manchester Old Trafford and live from Battersea Queenstown Road, which is where I now live. It's, as ever, brought to you by Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City. Daniel, I bought a microwave today, and it really excited me. And I want your 30-second summary to excite me as much as the first ping of my new microwave gave me earlier today. After you.
Much gloom and doom and despondency is spread across the country at the thought of another test series between unequal opponents, England and Sri Lanka. And it looked like that was going to be the case when Sri Lanka fell to 6 for 3 upon winning the toss and electing to bat. One of the worst starts in the history of Test cricket ever recorded in this country. But then, the things we thought that were good about Sri Lanka turned out to not be very good today. And the things we thought that were terrible about Sri Lanka turned out to be really rather good. It's all for me about Dhananjaya De Silva. What a great skipper he is with his 74. And Milan Rathnayake. Who knew? Who knew? There's a lot to talk about with him coming up later. Ultimately, though, England end the day well on top, having bowled out Sri Lanka for 236. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's more than it could have been. And finishing the day in bizarre circumstances, facing spinners and getting to the close on 22 without loss before the dark, doom, dismal, dank Manchester sky won the day.
Well, what joy that brought me. Let's start at the beginning with that dismal start. As you said, Sri Lanka have a very steady top six. The whole idea of this series is that basically it could be a case of Sri Lanka get 400 and then England get 7,000. And that's the kind of pattern of play. Sri Lanka's openers in Madushka and Karuna Ratne were shaping up beautifully for like 5 overs. They hadn't scored any runs, but they shaped up so kind of technically correct. And kind of Atherton on commentaries purring and everything, all the shapes are correct. And then you blink and they're 6 for 3 and it feels like the match is over. Was that good bowling? Was that bad batting? Where did you kind of fall in the Angelo Matthews leave of the century debate?
For the most part, the first 3 wickets were disappointing shots, or indeed not shots, if you like. It was not that difficult to tell, I suppose. After the first 6 overs of circumspection, 6 for none, I think on TMS we'd already started commentating as if we were in the middle of a 180-run partnership. But it was all started by Gus Atkinson, wasn't it? A short ball that Karuna Ratner went after. And yeah, when you look at it in isolation, you think that's not a good shot. But actually, it was a really good bit of bowling. It was faster than Karuna Ratner was expecting. And let's not forget, Karuna Ratner's got a pretty poor record in England and these quicker pitches. It was a sensible bit of bowling. Then, unfortunately, Madushka, my dear, got out playing one of the not great shots. There's a little bit of movement from Wokes, but he chased after a wide one. Easy catch into Root's breadbasket. And then, as you say, Angelo Matthews, some leaves, they say, are better than others. Normally about missing. Some leaves, you think, well, that's a reasonable leave, like the Simon Jones one, of course, to Michael Clarke, wasn't it? You think, well, that's not going to hit the stumps. Well, this one pitched about 6 inches outside off stump, and so just came on and kept going. I don't know what was worse, the leave or the review, really, but it was a singularly not good bit of cricket. At that point, at 6 for 3, they were in horrible bother, but you've got to give it also to England's bowlers that they bowled accurately, they bowled tight. They did beat the bat a couple of times before that with a little bit of movement as well. So I think the pressure they exerted on a Sri Lankan side that wanted to get on top of England, when you win the toss and bat and you've got 4 players in your top 6 who played in 2016, the last time Sri Lanka toured England, and the other couple are Dhananjaya De Silva and Madushka, who are both good players, you are thinking, I want to impose myself with our strong suit, with the batting. So you can kind of forgive them for having a go. But the forgiveness is quite qualified. It was quite ugly. Thereafter, there were some quite decent partnerships and a couple of really, really good innings. But yeah, for the most part, they did sort of throw it away there.
I want to labour on England's bowling up top for a little bit. First of all, with that lead from Angelo Matthews, I implore you to watch it if you haven't seen it. I remember hearing it before I saw it, and I heard the kind of, my eyes were elsewhere, and then I heard dun. So I heard kind of 2 noises. And then when the replay came along, I was like, well, he's either hit it or it kind of ball's beaten the bat and it's snuck through and taken front pad and back pad. And then as the slow motion replay starts rolling and you see him shouldering arms, you're going, how fuck has he left there? And it's hit both his pads. And you go, oh, that's the most out thing I've ever seen in my life. But all the bowlers, and to go on from 6 for 3 and then to take into Mark Wood's first wicket to make it 40 for Kusal Mendes, all of Wood, Atkinson and Wokes got the wickets in the role they are designed to play in this England team. So by that I mean Chris Wokes swung like it wasn't the most, it was quite a gentle outswinger to get Madushka, but nevertheless it was good stereotypical swing bowling in English conditions. Atkinson, that short ball he's had so much success with, and it kind of was what started kind of getting people's attention in white ball stuff, where he would bounce people, rush them, they wouldn't quite pick up that it was a short ball from his release. And even though it says 84, it feels quicker than what it says on the gun, blah, blah, blah. That's Atkinson's kind of super strength, as it were, to use the parlance. And then Mark Wood, the ball he's got Kusal Mendes with is so horrifying, the idea of facing it. It's a brutish, violent bouncer that has struck Mendes in the thumb, lobbed up to second slip, and I can't quite wrap my head around how much pace the ball has lost, having only struck Mendes' thumb, and how Mendes' thumb is still attached to his hand, because it looked horrifically painful. And
Are you talking about the laws of physics here, Cam? I know you mean.
I often talk.
Yeah.
I talk about. Well, I sometimes swap between the laws of physics and the kind of nature of philosophy. That's where I tend to kind of draw my two linguistic inspirations from. But at the moment, we're going for a physicist's point of view, and it made me excited for the future of English fast bowling if you can keep Mark Wood wrapped up in cotton wool. And because all anyone ever cares about is the Ashes, I went, oh my goodness me, wouldn't it be so much fun if Mark Wood and Jofra Archer played together in the Ashes. But I want to move forward into when Sri Lanka batted quite well. And more to the point, Dhananjaya De Silva, a wonderfully attractive man, he was kind of giving the potential blueprint for the rest of the match, because yes, his team was 72 for 5, 40 for 4, 90 for 6. He was trotting along at a run a ball and brought up another 50. His record since taking over the Test captaincy this year is excellent. And most of all, it was a wonderfully aesthetic innings that has given his team a chance and led to the greatest success we saw later in the innings with Rathnayake. Sorry. Over to you.
Yeah, we'll get there. It was a beautiful innings. It was a lovely innings. And you're right, he's a beautiful man. He's got great lustrous locks, hasn't he? Beautiful hair. And I think it was taking the game back to England. It was a bold move, but he's the captain and he's won the toss and he's elected to bat, and he's been horrified by what he's seen at the other end to a degree. But he's doing it in the teeth of some really good fast bowling. As you mentioned, the ball that Wood bowled to get rid of Kusal was ghastly, and Wood looked like he was going to do that a few times. You can get the audible gasps, and that's got to translate itself into your approach when you're batting, thinking, oh, really? This all our worst nightmares come true. And his response to it was to hit any ball that had any kind of width. So, Matt Potts came in for a bit of treatment. Not that he targeted Potts, but it's just that when Potts gave any kind of width, he went after it and smashed it away. If it was overpitched, he went after it. But even if it was short, he didn't hit that many boundaries. He had one of the best busyness indexes there is. So at one point, busyness, yes. So he'd scored off just over half the balls he'd faced, which is pretty good going. He'd done that. Yeah, there were some attacking fields. Ollie Pope captained in the image, really, of Ben Stokes, keeping fielders up and looking for wickets, not really caring about the runs, even when they'd got 5, 6, 7 down. He didn't at any point really go defensive. And Dhananjaya made the most of that, but with sensible batting. I think there were only 5 boundaries in his first 67 runs or something. I didn't check at the end. I think probably ended up on 5. And he gave a really good example to the guys at the other end. And, when he was in with Jayasuriya, the fear, though, was that he was going to have to do everything single-handed, because Jayasuriya came in at 8, perplexingly, when we got to see Rathnayake bat at 9. And he really didn't fancy it. And this isn't having a dig at him. No one would fancy it. Atkinson had got a head of steam up, and he was bumping him all over the place. There were some gorgeous fields, leg gullies and short legs and a deep gully and, fly slips, which was just saying, I'm going to bomb you. And indeed, he did bomb him. He bombed him so often that he actually got him with a no ball. It was a no ball because it was the third ball above shoulder height, which I had to check on the replay. And it was a brute of a ball as well. It shot up and he was sort of fending it away from his face and gloved it. There are lots of hands hit today, I've got to say. But then Rathnayake walks in, and you're fearing the worst because this guy's not played a test match before. And just as significantly, our stats man Andy Zaltzman on TMS couldn't for sure tell us what his first-class record was, because there are three different versions of his first-class record. It's a little bit like the book Chinaman, which is about a fictional player, Pradeep Matthew. Yeah, it's very much like that, because his numbers exist on the internet, but the player itself is, does he exist or doesn't he? Who is this guy that's come out to bat? Has he really got 2 half-centuries? Has he played 16 matches or 19 matches? He's indexed in 3 different databases differently. And when he walked out to bat with a supposedly highest first-class score of 59, you feared for the worst, because you just see what Jayasuriya was doing at 8, and you've been told that their lower order is poor. And I hadn't seen Rathnayake. I don't know anyone who had seen Rathnayake.
I've seen 3 of them personally.
Well, indeed. There are at least that many. There are probably more. But what was a feature of his play was that he didn't then proceed to score his highest first-class score on debut in a scratchy way. He was impeccable. His technique was gorgeous. He was getting right in behind the faster bowlers, which instantly translated into Dhananjaya becoming confident at the other end. And Dhananjaya didn't suddenly think, oh, God, I've got to go hard, because if I don't get the run soon, a couple of balls to Rathnayake and he's toast. Actually, there was no sheltering of the strike. They batted normally in what was a terrific partnership that was technically excellent. It was also quite beautiful to watch on occasion. There were some lovely shots unfurled. And, it could so easily have been 125, 130 all out. And it ended up being 236 all out, which doesn't sound great, does it? But it's an awful lot better than it could have been. And I think we needed it, didn't we? Because there's so much doom and gloom about this summer in England, about England playing against the West Indies and then Sri Lanka and being unequal contests, that there needed to be a bit of fight back. And there was more than a bit of fight back. There was some real guts in that partnership, I thought.
I have 3 things I wish to say. The first of which is a theory that, if you can put to Andy Zaltzman or Andrew Sampson or any of our wonderfully talented statistical friends, is that I'm convinced that batters, tail-end batters from 8 through 11, have a high proportion of registering their highest ever test score on debut than anyone else. I always look through in history, every tail-ender, whenever they have a first-class 50 or a test 50, it's always on debut. I'm going to give you Darren Gough. I'm going to give you Rathnayake from today. I'm going to give you Jamie Overton for England. And just to feed into this, basically, keep an eye out. I think it's true. 2, I want to ask you about England's bowling. And this is a 2-part question. So please, Daniel, please pay attention, for goodness sake.
I am paying attention. I've just
I was doing that for effect.
I've got to do 5 live later, and people are badgering me. Sorry about that.
They're so in demand. No,
I am in demand.
I felt bad there because I wasn't doing that in terms of like, Daniel's checking his phone. That's making me. I was doing that as a comedic tick, and it was quite successful.
It was very good.
Actually. Oh, thank you. Part 1. Matthew Potts. I felt quite bad for him today. You look down the bowling figures, and he is the anomaly. After 13 overs today, Sri Lanka were 37 for 3. Off 11 of those overs, England had them 18 for 3. And off the 2 overs Matthew Potts had bowled, he was none for 19. And you're thinking, it's not brilliant. Was that... I don't really ever know if that's... Did he bowl badly? Was that the impression at the ground? Or was it just one of those days where the ball was taking the outside half of the bat and kind of shit happens? And part 2...
Sorry. Yeah.
Before we get into that, because it then could bleed into this later. Again, the 9th wicket partnership, the 7th wicket one. The fucking tail scored a bunch of runs, and that's a theme, basically. And do England have a problem there? And I don't really understand this criticism, because it's weird. It's like, England are bad at getting tail enders out. I'm like, okay, so they're good at getting good players out, but bad at getting bad players out. Was that another sense of today? Was that a potential asterisk next to Ollie Pope's captaincy debut?
Well, I'm going to start. I'm going to start with the second question first because
Perfect.
actually I thought Ollie Pope auditioning for the role of England captain got it absolutely spot on. If you want to be an England captain, you've got to struggle to get out the tail. Otherwise,
okay.
you're a very, very suspicious captain. Otherwise, no one would trust you. You can't just swan in here and wipe out the tail. I mean, before you know it, the inevitable will happen, and you'll start not being able to get better players out because it's impossible to get them both out. I don't know that was a Pope problem. He didn't succumb to the really annoying thing of putting everybody back and then in and out and in. Part of that was that actually, Michael Vaughan mentioned this, that the pitch at Old Trafford can sometimes get a bit easier. It can be at its most lively and spacey early on. We haven't talked about, for example, Bashir's first wicket, which was a mally grabber. The ball turning a mile and hitting whoever it was. I forget now because it's so long ago.
I can tell you immediately. I was about to say it was Angelo Matthews. It wasn't. It was Dinesh Chandamar.
Dinesh Chandamar. Yeah, so he got Chandamar with an absolutely unplayable ball. And at that point, because it was about 1:45 on the first day, you think, uh-oh, this pitch is an absolute nightmare. It turned and it went along virtually on the ground. It was shown that it would have hit about 4 inches above off on middle stump. But then the pitch got a bit easier and it didn't misbehave after that. As the ball got a little bit softer, that didn't have quite the same zip and the same bite. Crucially, the Sri Lankan batters batted really well. And sometimes you've got to be allowed to bat well, haven't you? And then when you do bat well, let's just go really, really good stuff. The same with Vishwa Fernando when he came in with Rathnayake and batted for yonks. We were told this guy can't bat. Well, actually, he was the guy, wasn't he, that was at the other end when Kusal Mendis got that incredible 150 against South Africa to win that game, that 10th wicket partnership in 2019. One of the great test matches of all time against the likes of Dale Steyn. There might even have been Morley Morkel playing, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, sometimes batters bat well. Now, the problem with me answering the second question first is I've completely forgotten the first question.
So I'm going to give you, you're allowed to answer it in one word and one word only. Matt Potts, is his England career over after day one?
No. So
okay, fine, that's fine.
What did happen there was that he bowled a little bit wider than the others, and the Sri Lankans were moved to play the ball, and a lot of the time you felt it wasn't entirely convincing. There were a few angled bat shots. I don't know. When I was watching back on the replay, I was torn. I was thinking he might actually have been trying to play it there, but it was a curious shot to play because it was going quite close to third slip, quite riskily. So, no, I think Potts got a little unlucky. He didn't bowl with the same venom as Atkinson, and he didn't bowl with the same movement as Woakes. So, Atkinson and Wood are Old Trafford bowlers. This is the sort of place. There was a test match here about, I forget when, around 2006. When Harmison and Panesar were the wicket takers. They got 5 each in an innings. So it has a bit of turn. It's a bit scrubby and scabrous, but it's got pace in it. And out-and-out pace and good spin, good controlled spin bowling will do the trick for you. Now, Woakes slightly bucked the trend by getting some movement early on, appreciable movement through the air, but he just seems to do it in England. And Potts was kind of the least Old Traffordy bowler of the whole lot in his own way. The most Old Traffordy bowlers were Wood, Atkinson and Bashir. And they were actually the most threatening, even though Woakes picked up those wickets. One through the most atrocious leave you've ever seen in your life, one through an injudicious shot. So, I feel a bit for Potts because this wasn't the pitch you think he would necessarily want to come back and play his comeback match on.
I found it quite, what's the word, telling? No, telling's the absolutely wrong word. I just found it interesting. He's been on the sidelines for so long, and I associate Matthew Potts with such a kind of golden touch when he came in 2 years ago and he kind of was nicking off Kane Williamson and just was perfect kind of every match and was this kind of plug and play bowler. And it was quite bizarre and things can like not go perfectly when I don't think he did do too much wrong. Anyway, we're going to move on to the Final Word Hall of Fame. I have WhatsApped you the ad reads because I know you enjoy them so much. You're going to deliver the Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City ad read, and then I'm going to start the Final Word Hall of Fame because there's something I wish to bring in and ask your opinion of.
It's Hall of Fame time. Who doesn't love the story of Jack and the Beanstalk? It has everything. Someone getting swindled in a trade, someone getting yelled at by an overpossessive spouse. Violence! What's not to love? And if you've ever wanted to live out your Jack-based fantasies, come on down to Westfield, Stratford City before the 1st of September and explore the Giant's Garden. You'll find a Zorb pool, whatever that is, arts and crafts, storytelling, a giant watering can, giant flowers, giant booths, and, if you go at the right time, you might even see a giant bird bath. It's free and fun for the whole family, so come along and find out what it must be like when Justin Langer speaks to Cameron Green. Westfield, Stratford City. Big stuff for little kids. Thank you for that.
I think that was your best one. I think it was wonderful copy and also expertly delivered. So I've enjoyed that greatly.
Yeah, do you know that's my first take as well?
I'm
not doing it again.
Yeah, I know. You know what? I did know it was your first take. To be honest, I was across that, but it makes it all the more impressive. Right, Final Word Hall of Fame. This might even be a little bit of a conversation as opposed to kind of two anecdotes. At the end of today, well, at the back end of England's innings, Sri Lanka's innings, sorry, England were having to bowl spin because it got to a point where it was too dark to bowl seam. And so Joe Root came on, in effect. And there was a little period where England had chosen to do it, but then they went to bring on Mark Wood, and the umpire said, no, too dark for that. Now, England persisted with this because they were like, we only need 2 wickets, let's get them out. But then, when it's time for England to bat, Sri Lanka have this predicament that it is too dark for us to bowl our opening bowlers, and so they chose to open the bowling with Dhananjaya De Silva with some offies and Jayasuriya with some left armers. At the end of play, England won 22 for none after 4 overs, and I found it a particularly bizarre phenomenon that kind of cricket was able to concoct, where people aren't able to do the skills. We're only able to play half the game, and you thought it was a good idea for Sri Lanka as a bit of a free hit. And my argument that I'd put to you is Dan Lawrence, not an opening batter. That's in the middle order. What would he like to face? What's he going, oh shit, I really don't want to face that. Seamers. And you go, do you want to face Dhananjaya De Silva, mate? Yes, that sounds amazing. So, that was strange. That was odd. Please present me the alternative argument.
Well, the alternative argument is that you can stop the experiment as soon as you want. And Ben Duckett was going to be facing first, and indeed did face first. And in his first incarnation as a Test cricketer, he played on a pitches in Dhaka and Chittagong, and then out in India, which were quite helpful to spinners, off spinners, particularly taking the ball away from him. With the new ball, he was undone by Mahedi Hassan Mirza of Bangladesh early on in his career. And I thought, having a little look and seeing if you could prize out Duckett, I take your point about Lawrence, but point is, you've only got to bowl 6 or 7 balls at him. If he hits a couple for 4, which is exactly what did happen in actual fact, Lawrence got a couple of singles away, and then he danced down the wicket and clipped an absolutely gorgeous ball through mid-wicket. And at which point Dhananjaya went, nah, forget this. We're not doing this anymore. So I thought trying to get Duckett out that way was not a bad idea, because Duckett's renaissance, yes, I know he has faced spin up front against Abrar, a man who's always abreast of the situation, the Pakistani bowler.
I'm with you. Don't worry.
Yeah. I just thought I'd throw that pun in there.
I understood everything that's happened. I just didn't laugh as much as you
Why
wished.
not?
I'm
It's a
very
good
sorry.
one. It's really pure oil.
Anyway, you're always good. They're always good, Daniel. I can't laugh at all of them.
No,
you
I
wouldn't get anything done.
Shucks. No, stop it. He has faced against a bit of spin against Pakistan, but those were on pitches that actually didn't turn. There's a bit of a myth that spinners prosper in Pakistan, just that no one prospers in Pakistan, so you've got to have spinners to bowl some hard yards to give the fast bowlers a little bit of time off. And so when he has been on responsive pitches against a new ball, quite tricky. And I thought it was worth having a look. It turns out that the Duckett 2 point, well, he's not naught now, it's like 2.9, is just all-round better player. And he negotiated it really easily. And as a result, it was only 4 overs. It was only 22 runs. And you could argue that it's a low-scoring game. I think it's only a low-scoring game because Sri Lanka didn't make enough runs. So if you're going to try and get back in the game, I think having a little bit of a risk is no bad idea. And, you know, why do you hate the punters so much? Why do you want to deny them some cricket, Cameron Ponsonby?
Yeah,
We got some more cricket, which was nice, and it moved the game along. If that's your Hall of Famer, can I see your Hall of Famer? And I want to throw a question to you. Okay.
Oh my God. Okay.
So,
yeah.
You mentioned that Joe Root came on. This is my Hall of Fame moment.
Yeah.
And they were bowling together in tandem, were Shoaib Bashir and Joe Root for quite some time. And Root just got frustrated at one point, I think, that, you know, I think Vishwa Fernando was handling him so easily, as was Rathnayake, that he suddenly pinged in a bouncer at Rathnayake, about 74 mile per hour bouncer with Smith standing up. Rathnayake went after it, top edged it, got a couple of runs. Now, the question I put to you, for this is my Hall of Fame moment, is why didn't the umpires instantly take them off? Because if he's just bowled a bouncer, it's like, nah, I'm afraid you've broken the truce. The truce is you can bowl. So it's not that you are an intrinsically slow bowler who's allowed to bowl fast balls every now and then. Yeah. You've just bowled a fast ball. Off you come, Sonny.
It's kind of like Mabel, like mutually assured bad light. We're all in this together. I think basically the umpires have a great respect for the punters and wanted to get as much cricket in for the paying public as possible. And that's why they did it. And not to think, which is odd though, because they were kind of hot on Gus Atkinson's 3 no balls, 3 over shoulder height, which is not often a rule that you see subscribed to. Yeah, so my answer to you, Daniel, is the umpires are gutless, and that was it. They should know.
Bunch of mindless, gutless sheep, a lot of them. Meh, meh.
Right. That's enough for today. Me and Daniel will be back tomorrow. The first daily of this England versus Sri Lanka series has been and gone. It's been recorded and it'll be in your ears or in your eyes. Hopefully very shortly. Brought to you as ever by Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City. We will see you tomorrow.
Don't forget your nose and your taste.